I stood at the airport, holding flowers for my husband who'd been away for 3 years building his business empire. Then I saw him walk through arrivals, with a woman on his arm and 2 small children calling him Daddy. But when she turned around, my blood ran cold. It was my own sister, Clara, the one who vanished 5 years ago. If you think you've heard betrayal stories, wait until you hear this one. A husband, a sister, and a revenge so epic it'll give you chills. Hit that subscribe button right now because you won't believe where this goes. Let's begin. I stood at the airport terminal, clutching a bouquet of white roses so tightly that my knuckles had turned pale. My heart was racing with excitement and nervousness all mixed together. 3 years. It had been 3 long years since I'd seen my husband Nathan in person, felt his arms around me, heard his laugh without the delay of a video call. The arrival board showed his flight from Dubai had landed 15 minutes ago, and any moment now, he'd walk through those doors. My younger sister Sophie stood beside me, holding up her phone to record the reunion. She was bouncing on her toes with excitement. "Kinsley, you're going to cry the second you see him, I just know it," she teased. I smiled, blinking back the tears that were already forming. She was probably right. I'd cried plenty over the past 3 years, missing him. But today would be happy tears. Today our life together would finally start again. The automatic doors slid open, and passengers began streaming through. My breath caught in my throat as I scanned every face, every figure. Then, I saw him. Nathan. Tall, handsome, wearing that gray suit I'd helped him pick out over video call last month. But something was wrong. Very wrong. He wasn't alone. A woman walked beside him, her hand resting possessively on his arm, and there were children, 2 small children, a boy and a girl, holding on to him, calling out in their sweet voices. The flowers slipped from my fingers. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The woman turned her head, laughing at something Nathan said, and that's when my entire world shattered into a million pieces. I knew that face. I'd known it my entire life. It was Clara, my sister, Clara, the one who'd disappeared 5 years ago, the one who'd stolen $50,000 from our family inheritance and vanished without a trace, leaving only a cruel note saying she'd prove she didn't need me. Sophie's scream pierced through the airport noise. Her phone clattered to the floor. "Clara? Oh my God, that's Clara!" Everything started spinning. The fluorescent lights above seemed too bright. The ground felt like it was tilting beneath my feet. I heard Sophie yelling my name, felt her hands grabbing my arms, but it was too late. Darkness swallowed me whole, and I collapsed right there in the middle of the arrivals terminal. When I came to, I was sitting in a chair with an airport security guard hovering over me asking if I needed an ambulance. Sophie was crying beside me, holding my hand. And there, standing just a few feet away, were Nathan and Clara, my husband and my sister, together. The 2 children clung to Clara's legs, looking frightened and confused. The little boy couldn't have been more than 4 years old. The girl looked about 2. They had Nathan's eyes, both of them. I stood up slowly, pushing away the security guard's concerned hands. My voice came out strangled, barely a whisper. "Nathan?" He wouldn't meet my eyes. He just stood there, jaw clenched, looking at the floor. But Clara... Oh, Clara had no problem looking at me. She had this smile on her face. This horrible, triumphant smile that made my blood run cold. "Surprised, big sister?" Her voice was exactly as I remembered it, but harder now. Colder. "I told you I'd show you I didn't need you. Looks like I was right." She moved closer to Nathan, wrapping her arm around his waist in a gesture that was clearly meant to wound me. And it did. God, it did. Sophie lunged forward, but I grabbed her arm, holding her back. "How long?" I managed to ask, looking directly at Nathan. "How long has this been going on?" He finally looked up at me, and I saw guilt in his eyes, but not enough. Not nearly enough. "Kinsley, I can explain. It's complicated." 4 years, Clara interrupted, her voice sharp and gleeful. "We've been together for 4 years. Even before he married you, dear sister. Actually, especially before he married you." The airport terminal seemed to tilt again. 4 years. That meant Nathan had been with Clara when he met me, when he courted me, when he proposed, when he stood at that altar and promised to love me forever. It had all been a lie. Every single moment. "You see, Kinsley," Clara continued, clearly enjoying every second of my pain, "Nathan always loved me. You were just convenient. You had the family name, the business connections, the inheritance. But me? I was what he actually wanted." She placed her hand on her stomach, and I noticed for the first time the slight swell there. She was pregnant. Again. These beautiful children are his. DNA doesn't lie. And there's another one on the way. The little boy suddenly spoke up, his tiny voice innocent and unaware of the destruction happening around him. "Papa, why is that lady crying? Is she sick?" Nathan finally found his voice, but his words were like knives. "I'm sorry, Kinsley, I am. But I love her. I always have. We tried to stay apart, we really did. But sometimes you can't fight what's meant to be." Sophie was shaking with rage beside me. "You're disgusting. Both of you. Kinsley raised her." She pointed at Clara accusingly. "When Mom and Dad died, Kinsley gave up everything for us. She worked 3 jobs so we could stay together, so we wouldn't be split up into foster care. She put you through school, Clara. She loved you more than anyone, and this is how you repay her?" Clara's expression didn't change. If anything, her smile grew wider. "That's exactly why I did it, Sophie. I was so tired of being the charity case. Tired of perfect Kinsley sacrificing for poor little Clara, tired of living in her shadow. When Nathan came into our lives, I saw my chance, and I took it. He helped me leave 5 years ago, gave me money to start fresh in Dubai, and while Kinsley was playing the devoted wife, waiting patiently for her husband to come home, we were building a real family, a real life." My mind was racing, piecing together the timeline. The big fight we'd had 5 years ago, right before Clara disappeared. I'd accused her of being irresponsible with money, of not appreciating the sacrifices our family had made. She'd screamed at me, called me controlling and self-righteous. The next morning, she was gone, along with $50,000 from the inheritance account our parents had left us. I'd reported it to the police, but she was an adult. They couldn't force her to come home. And then, just weeks later, Nathan had appeared in my life. He'd been so understanding, so compassionate about my pain over losing my sister. He'd held me while I cried, told me it wasn't my fault, promised that he'd never leave me. We'd gotten married within a year. I'd thought it was fate, thought God had sent me someone to help heal the wound Clara had left. But it had all been planned. Nathan had helped her leave. He'd pursued me deliberately. Our entire relationship was built on lies and manipulation. "The house?" I said suddenly, realization hitting me. "You're going after my parents' house. That's what this is really about." Nathan finally showed some emotion, a flash of anger crossing his face. "It's our house now, Kinsley. Legally, as your husband, I have rights to it, and Clara's children should grow up in a real home, not some apartment in Dubai." My parents' house, the beautiful old Victorian where we'd grown up, where Mom had baked cookies every Sunday, where Dad had taught us to ride bikes in the driveway. It was all I had left of them, and now Nathan was going to take that too. I looked at the children again, these innocent babies who had no idea they were part of something so twisted and cruel. The little girl had Clara's nose, the boy had Nathan's smile. They were beautiful, and they were victims in this too, even if they didn't know it yet. "Come on, Sophie," I said quietly, turning away. "Let's go home." "That's it?" Sophie was incredulous. "You're just going to let them walk away?" I picked up the crushed bouquet of roses from the floor, the petals already wilting and brown. "What else can I do right now? Scream? Fight? Fall apart in front of everyone?" I looked back at Nathan and Clara one last time. They've already won. They just don't know yet what they've actually won. The drive home was silent, except for Sophie's angry muttering and occasional sobs. My phone kept buzzing with calls from Nathan, but I ignored them all. When we pulled into the driveway of my apartment, I saw our grandmother's car parked outside. Sophie must have called her from the airport. Grandma Helen was the only family we had left besides each other now, our last connection to our parents. She was in her 70s but still sharp as a tack. When we walked in, she took one look at my face and knew. "What did that boy do?" she asked, her voice trembling with fury. Sophie broke down, telling her everything between sobs. I sat in silence, staring at nothing, feeling numb. When Sophie finished, Grandma Helen's face had gone pale. She clutched her chest, swaying slightly. "Grandma!" We both rushed to her side. I'm fine," she insisted, but she wasn't. Over the next hour, her condition worsened. We had to call an ambulance. The paramedics said it was a minor stroke, brought on by shock and stress. As they loaded her into the ambulance, all I could think was that Nathan and Clara had done this. Their betrayal had literally put my grandmother in the hospital. How much more could they take from me? The next few weeks were a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Nathan and Clara actually moved into my parents' house, my house, with their children. Nathan's expensive lawyers argued that as my legal husband, he had every right to the marital home. Clara posted pictures all over social media showing her touching my mother's furniture, cooking in my mother's kitchen, sleeping in my parents' bedroom. She tagged me in every single photo, making sure I saw how she'd taken over my entire life. My phone exploded with messages from people I knew, asking if it was true, if my husband really had left me for my sister. The gossip spread like wildfire through our social circle. Some people supported me, but others? Others started questioning what I must have done wrong to drive my husband into my sister's arms. One former friend actually commented on Clara's photo, "Well, she is prettier and younger. Can you blame him?" I deleted all my social media apps after that. I couldn't take it anymore. My business started falling apart too. I'd spent years building my interior design firm, creating a reputation for quality and reliability. But now clients were canceling left and right. Some claimed it was because they didn't want to be associated with scandal. Others didn't even bother with an excuse. They just disappeared, taking their deposits and their trust with them. Within a month, I'd lost 60% of my client base. The money dried up fast. Bills piled up. Sophie had to drop out of college to work 2 jobs just to help us keep our small apartment and pay for Grandma's medical bills. I met with a lawyer named Patricia Chen who specialized in family law. She was kind but direct, and what she told me made my situation so much worse. Nathan had been smart, calculating. Years ago, when we'd first gotten married, he'd had me sign a power of attorney for business purposes. I hadn't thought anything of it at the time. I'd trusted him completely. But he'd used that document to access my shares in my father's company, the 30% stake I'd inherited. He'd been systematically selling them off and transferring the money to offshore accounts I had no access to. "The house is more complicated," Patricia explained, spreading documents across her desk. "Technically you inherited it, but because you're married and it wasn't held in a protective trust, he can make a legal claim to it. And the Dubai marriage..." She hesitated. "Clara has a marriage certificate from Dubai. If they can prove he married her there legally, you might be in a bigamy situation, which actually works against both of you. He could face criminal charges, but it also means your marriage might be considered invalid, which affects your property claims." I felt sick. "So I could lose everything?" Patricia nodded slowly. "He's offering you $100,000 to walk away quietly and not fight the divorce. Honestly, Kinsley, if you fight this, it could drag on for years and cost more than you'd win. He has resources you don't. His family is wealthy and connected. They're already painting you as an unstable, vengeful ex-wife. I'm sorry to be blunt, but you're in a very weak position." That night I sat in my tiny apartment with Sophie and cried until I had no tears left. Sophie held me, stroking my hair like I used to do for her when she was little and had nightmares. "We'll get through this," she kept saying. "Somehow we'll get through this." But I didn't believe her. I didn't believe in anything anymore. The lowest point came 2 months after that horrible day at the airport. I was walking past an expensive restaurant downtown when I saw them through the window, Nathan and Clara dressed in beautiful clothes, laughing together over champagne and fancy food. They were celebrating something. I stood there on the cold street, pressing my face against the glass like some pathetic stalker, and watched my husband kiss my sister, watched him place his hand on her pregnant belly with such tenderness, watched them toast to their happiness while my whole world burned to ashes. Something broke inside me that night, but it wasn't what you might think. I didn't shatter into more pieces. Instead, something hardened, crystallized. I stopped crying, stopped feeling sorry for myself, stopped being the victim. I went home, looked at myself in the mirror, and made a decision. They'd taken everything from me: my husband, my sister, my home, my business, my dignity. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd underestimated me. They thought I was defeated, broken, ready to just disappear. They had no idea who they were really dealing with. I sold every piece of jewelry I owned, including my engagement ring and wedding band. I took the money and hired a private investigator named Jerome, who came highly recommended despite his steep price. I don't just want to know what they're doing now, I told him. I want to know everything. Every secret, every lie, every dirty detail about Nathan's business dealings in Dubai. There has to be something. People don't just succeed that dramatically overseas without cutting corners somewhere. While Jerome investigated, I reached out to someone I hadn't thought about in years, Bernard Williams. He'd been my father's lawyer and closest friend. After my parents died, he'd handled their estate, but we'd lost touch. When I called him, his voice was warm and immediately concerned. "Kinsley, I heard what happened. I'm so sorry. Your father would be heartbroken." We met at his office and I explained everything, the whole sordid story. Bernard listened carefully, taking notes, his expression growing more thoughtful. When I finished, he sat back in his leather chair and steepled his fingers. "Your father was one of the smartest men I ever knew. He loved you girls more than life itself, and he was paranoid, in a good way, about protecting you." He pulled out an old file from his cabinet, dusty and thick. "When your parents updated their will after Clara turned 18, your father insisted on something unusual. He created a protective trust." My heart started beating faster. "What does that mean?" Bernard smiled, the first genuinely hopeful expression I'd seen directed at me in months. "It means that certain assets, including the family home and your company shares, weren't just left to you outright. They were placed in an irrevocable trust with very specific conditions. One of those conditions was protection against what your father called betrayal by marriage. If your spouse attempts to claim or sell trust assets without your explicit consent, documented and witnessed properly, those transfers are void. Legally void." I sat forward, hardly daring to hope. "So the house cannot be legally claimed by Nathan. Any documents he had you sign giving him power of attorney don't apply to trust assets. Your father made sure of that. He never fully trusted Nathan, you know. Thought he was too smooth, too eager." Bernard pulled out more papers. "And this is interesting. To transfer the house, you would need signatures from all beneficiaries. That means you and both your sisters. If Clara's signature is on any transfer documents..." He trailed off meaningfully. "It would have to be forged," I finished, my mind racing. "Because she was supposedly missing for years. There's no way she could have legally signed anything." Bernard nodded. "Exactly. Which means Nathan has committed fraud, forgery, and probably several other crimes. The question is, can we prove it?" Over the next 3 weeks, I threw myself into research and planning with an intensity that surprised even me. Sophie became my partner in this, helping me organize documents, track down records, connect dots. Jerome started sending reports, and what he uncovered was explosive. Nathan's business in Dubai wasn't just successful, it was suspicious. Money was moving through shell companies in ways that suggested money laundering, large cash deposits from untraceable sources, connections to people with criminal records. And Clara wasn't just his wife and mother of his children. She was actively involved in the business, handling accounts, moving money, creating false documentation. "Your sister and your husband are running a criminal enterprise," Jerome told me during one of our meetings. I've got evidence of tax evasion, fraud, and what looks like money laundering for some very dangerous people. But here's what's really interesting. He pulled out more documents. Nathan's done this before, not once, not twice, but 3 times. He finds women with money or assets, marries them, bleeds them dry, and moves on. One of his previous wives is dead. Suspicious circumstances. Another one completely disappeared. The third one filed a police report claiming he threatened her, but it went nowhere because Nathan's family has connections. My blood ran cold. I'd married a predator, a man who systematically destroyed women for profit. And he'd brought my sister into it, twisted her pain and jealousy into something criminal. Clara thought she'd won, thought she'd gotten her revenge and her happily ever after. She had no idea she was just another victim, another tool he'd use and discard when he was done with her. But I also found something else, something Jerome discovered almost by accident. Nathan had another family. In London, another woman, another child, another web of lies. This man wasn't just a bigamist. He was a serial predator with families scattered across continents. Each woman thought she was the only one, the special one. Each woman had something he wanted, and when he'd taken what he needed, he disappeared, leaving destruction in his wake. I had everything I needed now. Evidence of fraud, forgery, money laundering, bigamy, and more. I had proof that my father's trust made Nathan's claims to my assets legally void. I had documentation of his pattern of abuse and manipulation. Now I just needed to bring it all together in a way that would destroy him completely. Not just legally, not just financially. I wanted to destroy his reputation, his freedom, his future. I wanted him to lose everything, just like he'd tried to do to me. So I planned a dinner party. I sent formal invitations to Nathan, Clara, and Nathan's parents. The message was simple and humble. I want to make peace. I want to discuss terms and move forward. Please come to my apartment for dinner so we can settle this like family. Nathan called me immediately, suspicious. Why now? What changed? I made my voice small, defeated. I'm tired, Nathan. Tired of fighting. Tired of being angry. You've won. I just want to sign the papers and move on with what's left of my life. He believed me because he wanted to believe me, because in his mind, I was already beaten. They all came to dinner the following Friday evening. I'd cooked an elaborate meal, set the table beautifully, even bought expensive wine. Sophie was there too, playing her role perfectly, acting subdued and resigned. Nathan's parents arrived first, his mother immediately launching into a lecture about how I needed to accept reality and stop being bitter. Nathan and Clara arrived together, Clara wearing an expensive dress, her pregnant belly prominent, her hand constantly touching Nathan's arm possessively. We sat down to eat, and I played the perfect hostess. Poured wine, served food, made small talk. Clara couldn't help herself. She started bragging about their life, the trips they'd taken, the expensive things Nathan had bought her, how the children were thriving in their house. Nathan's mother joined in, talking about what beautiful grandchildren they were, how wonderful it was that Nathan had finally found real happiness. I sat through it all with a calm smile, letting them enjoy their victory dinner. When dessert was served, Nathan pulled out a folder of papers. I'm glad you've come to your senses, Kinsley. These documents will finalize the divorce and property transfer. You'll get your $100,000, and we can all move on. He handed me a pen, clearly expecting me to sign right then and there. Instead, I pulled out my own folder, a much thicker one. Before I sign anything, I said pleasantly, I wanted to thank you all, really, because you've taught me so much. I opened the folder and started laying out documents on the table. I learned that trust is a weakness. That family means nothing to some people, that some humans are genuinely evil. I placed down the first set of papers. These are records of shell companies in Dubai, money laundering, tax evasion, fraud. Nathan's face went pale. He reached for the papers, but I moved them away. These, I continued, placing down more documents, are copies of my father's trust documents, the ones that prove you never had legal claim to my house or my company shares, the ones that show every transfer you made was void, Clara's smile had disappeared. She was staring at the papers with growing horror. "And these," I said, my voice growing colder, "are records of your other families, Nathan. The woman in London with your 6-year-old daughter, the previous wives, including the one who died mysteriously and the one who filed a police report against you." Nathan's mother gasped. His father stood up abruptly, his face red with rage. "You did this again? After you promised? After we paid all that money to make the last one go away?" "These are forged signatures," I continued, ignoring the family drama erupting around me. "Clara's signature on property documents from when she was supposedly missing. That's fraud and forgery." Clara started crying, ugly tears streaming down her face. "Nathan, you said this was all legal. You said—" "Shut up!" he snapped at her, but it was too late. I pulled out my phone and pressed a button. The front door opened, and Jerome walked in with 2 police detectives. "Nathan Harrison and Clara Martinez, you're under arrest for fraud, money laundering, forgery, and conspiracy." The detectives read them their rights while Nathan's parents sat frozen in shock. Nathan tried to run, actually pushed past his mother toward the back door, but Jerome had that covered too. Another officer was waiting there. As they handcuffed Nathan, he looked at me with such hatred that I actually felt afraid for a moment. "You'll regret this," he hissed. "I have lawyers, connections. I'll destroy you." I walked up close to him, close enough that only he could hear me. "You already tried to destroy me, Nathan, but I'm still here. And now? Now you're going to prison. You're going to lose everything. Your freedom, your money, your reputation. Just like you tried to do to me and all those other women." Clara was sobbing hysterically as they led her away. "Kinsley, please, I'm pregnant. Think about the baby." I watched her without emotion. "I am thinking about the baby. And those 2 children upstairs sleeping in my parents' house. They deserve better than you. Better than both of you." Sophie had been recording everything on her phone, just as we'd planned. Every confession, every reaction, everything that was said. It would all be evidence, proof of their guilt, their casual cruelty, their complete lack of remorse. After they were gone, Nathan's mother turned to me. She looked like she'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. "Please," she said quietly, "they'll go to prison. Isn't that enough? Don't destroy the whole family, Nathan's father's business, our reputation." I looked at her. This woman who'd told me I should forgive Nathan's cheating because men make mistakes. This woman who'd fawned over Clara's children while dismissing my pain. "You knew," I said simply. "You knew he'd done this before, and you helped him cover it up. You're as guilty as he is." The court proceedings took months, but with all the evidence we'd gathered, the outcome was never really in doubt. Nathan was sentenced to 25 years for money laundering, fraud, and his connection to criminal organizations. Clara got 15 years, a slightly lighter sentence because she cooperated and testified against Nathan in exchange for reduced charges. The children were taken by social services. Nathan's family was investigated. His father's business was found to have helped facilitate some of Nathan's crimes, and they faced their own legal consequences. All the assets Nathan had stolen were seized and returned to me. The house was legally confirmed as mine. My company shares were restored. I even received $10 million in damages from Nathan's seized criminal assets. Everything he'd taken, I got back. Everything he'd built on lies and crime was stripped away. He lost everything. But the story doesn't end there. 6 months after the trial, I got a call from a social worker named Jennifer. She asked if I could come to her office to discuss Nathan and Clara's children. When I arrived, those 2 beautiful kids were sitting in the waiting room, playing with toys. The 4-year-old boy, whose name was Leo, looked up at me with Nathan's eyes. The little girl, Maya, who was 3 now, had Clara's smile. "Ms. Martinez," Jennifer began carefully, "these children need a permanent guardian. Nathan's parents are fighting their own legal battles and are deemed unsuitable. Clara's parental rights have been terminated due to her incarceration. There are no other family members willing to take them. They'll go into the foster system unless—" She trailed off, watching me carefully. Sophie, who'd come with me, immediately shook her head. No, absolutely not. After everything Clara did? You can't be seriously considering this. But I was looking at Leo and Maya, these innocent children who hadn't asked to be born into such a mess. They were victims, too. They're my niece and nephew, I said quietly. They're my blood. The adoption process took another 3 months. It wasn't easy. There were home studies, evaluations, court hearings. People questioned my decision. Even Patricia, my lawyer, asked if I was sure I wanted to raise the children of the people who'd betrayed me so completely. But I was sure, because those children deserved a chance at a real family, at real love, something neither Nathan nor Clara had ever truly understood. A year after that horrible day at the airport, I took Leo and Maya to visit my parents' graves. Sophie came with us. My grandmother, who'd recovered well from her stroke, held my hand. We stood there in the quiet cemetery, and I told my parents everything that had happened. I know you're disappointed in Clara, I said softly. I'm disappointed too, but I'm raising her children, and I promise I'll do better than she did. I'll teach them about loyalty, about real love, about family that doesn't betray you. Leo tugged on my sleeve. Aunt Kinsley, are you sad? I smiled down at him. This sweet boy who called me aunt and was slowly learning to trust again. No, sweetheart, I'm not sad anymore. And I realized it was true. I wasn't sad. I wasn't angry either. I was free. Free from Nathan's manipulation, from Clara's jealousy, from all the lies and betrayal. My design business had recovered and was thriving now. The scandal had actually brought me attention, and people admired how I'd fought back. I'd been featured in magazines, invited to speak at events about overcoming adversity. Sophie had gone back to college and was studying law, determined to help other women who'd been victimized like I was. Grandma Helen had moved in with us, helping with the children and filling our house with warmth and laughter. As for Clara, she'd written me several letters from prison. I'd read the first few and then stopped. They were all the same: apologies, explanations, excuses. She claimed Nathan had manipulated her, that she'd been young and stupid, that she regretted everything. Maybe it was even true. Maybe she really was sorry, but it didn't matter anymore. I was raising her children, giving them the love and stability she never could. That was more than she deserved. I did visit her once, about a year into her sentence. Sophie came with me, mostly to make sure I was okay. Clara looked terrible. Prison had aged her dramatically. Her hair was stringy, her face pale and thin, her pregnant belly from that last night long gone. The baby had been adopted by another family. She'd lost everything just like Nathan had. When she saw me through the glass partition, she started crying immediately. Kinsley, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. He lied to me too. He promised me everything and I believed him. I was stupid and jealous and cruel, and I'm sorry. Her words tumbled over each other, desperate and broken. I sat there calmly, phone in hand, and just looked at her. I'm raising your children, I said finally. Leo and Maya, they're happy, they're loved. They'll grow up knowing their mother chose greed and revenge over them. Clara sobbed harder. Please, can I see them? Just once? Please, Kinsley, they're my babies. I shook my head slowly. No. They don't need to see you like this. They don't need to know this version of you. When they're older, when they ask about their mother, I'll tell them the truth. That you made terrible choices, that you hurt people who loved you, but that you were once my sister and I loved you too. Sophie wanted me to say more, to really let Clara have it, but I was done. I hung up the phone, stood up, and walked away. Clara was screaming my name, pounding on the glass, but I didn't look back. That chapter of my life was closed. Now, as I sit here in my parents' house, the house I saved, watching Leo and Maya play in the backyard while Sophie helps them build a treehouse and Grandma bakes cookies in the kitchen, I realized something important. Nathan and Clara thought they were destroying me. They thought they'd take everything and leave me with nothing, but they were wrong. They took things, yes, material things. They caused pain, yes, temporary pain, But they couldn't take who I was. They couldn't take my strength, my resilience, my capacity to love and rebuild. In trying to destroy me, they actually freed me from a marriage built on lies, freed me from a sister who never really loved me, freed me from illusions and naivety. And in that freedom, I built something better, something real. My phone buzzes with a message. It's from a man named Andrew, an architect I met at a design conference 3 months ago. He's asking if I want to grab coffee this weekend. I smile and start to type a response, but I'm cautious. I'm taking things slowly. I've learned that lesson well. Trust must be earned, not freely given. Love must be proven, not just proclaimed. Leo runs up to the porch, his face flushed and happy. "Aunt Kinsley, come see what we built." I put my phone down and go with him, hand in hand, into the backyard where real family, real love, real life is happening. And I think to myself that sometimes the worst betrayal leads to the best life. Sometimes the people who try to break you actually make you unbreakable. And sometimes, just sometimes, the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply living well, loving hard, and refusing to let anyone dim your light ever again. That's my story. That's what happened when my billionaire husband returned after 3 years abroad with a mistress who turned out to be my sister and 2 children I never knew existed. People say what happened next was unbelievable, but I lived it. I survived it. And I'm here to tell you that you can survive anything, absolutely anything. As long as you remember who you really are underneath all the pain and betrayal, remember that, because you never know when you'll need that knowledge to save yourself.